What's going on, everybody? We are live following the Bills' 24-14 loss in Atlanta to the Atlanta Falcons. Boy, Luka, that was a game.
Do we want to call it a game, or do we just want to call it a display of garbage? That was something that I love that. It's a weird thing to say, love. We had a conversation when we recorded last night about, you had mentioned you were going out and maybe pop on live depending on how things go and so on and so forth. And the perfect thing happened even for us to be here now to describe everything here, where our heads are just in a whirlwind, where 8 minutes prior to you saying you want to go live, you said no interest in going live, very frustrated. Yeah. It's like, that is mentally where I think a lot of people who will see this even in the following are at, following, coming out of that game. Just what the hell?
This, to me, I'm thinking back to a Bills drought game. It was against the Seahawks, and it was in Toronto, and I remember it vividly because this was year 3 of the Chan Gailey experiment and Buddy Nix experiment. And it just seemed like they were spinning their wheels with Ryan Fitzpatrick, spinning their wheels with Chan Gailey. The only time I can remember actively rooting against the Bills, because I wanted that Seahawks game to go so badly that the Bills had to be embarrassed into making a decision. That wasn't the case tonight. This is a 4-2 football team, even after this loss. But where I'm going with that is, if you are somebody that thought that this front office had to be strong-armed into making some moves at this trade deadline during the bye week, this was the perfect product for you, because the defense looked as leaky as ever. And to the defense's credit, Luka, they fought. In the second half, they fought. They blocked a field goal on special teams. They had back-to-back drives of getting this offense the ball back, and this offense continued to throw up all over itself. And I don't know at this point what the priority list is. I don't know if it's a receiver that can get open, if it's a defensive back who can literally cover anybody, or a linebacker who can tackle. And at the end of the day, if Shaq Thompson catches an interception that's right in his hands, the Bills still probably win this game. After all that, the Falcons were trying to hand it to you because they're a mediocre team, and that's what mediocre teams do. My overarching point of frustration after this game, though, is we're going to talk about the defense. There's a lot to say about the defense, but offensively, you listen to this ESPN crew all night. You talk about, wow, the Bills are down so many guys that Josh Allen doesn't have anybody that can get open against man coverage. And who is he? I guess he just has Shakir in the slot. I agree with the assessment of the skill of the players that are out there. What I don't agree with is that they were in this situation because they had so many injuries. The top 3 receivers on this team, by all accounts, are Khalil Shakir, in any order you want, Keon Coleman, and Joshua Palmer. And guess what? Joshua Palmer played about a quarter and a half of this game, went out with injury. Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman played this entire game. So if they are as good as you think they are, you should be able to run your offense functionally when Joshua Palmer goes out. That's where we're at in year 8 of Josh Allen. Joshua Palmer gets injured and the offense can't function. I understand Dalton Kincaid didn't play tonight. But Luka, it's inexcusable how pedestrian that offense looked, how afraid of their own shadow they looked once Joshua Palmer went down, where they could only move the ball in base and heavy personnel, running the ball up the middle. And it actually worked until they got to 4th and 2 and did an end around to Elijah Moore with no running backs on the field. But this collection of weapons they've put around Josh Allen, I think, has gotten to the point where you really have to question if it's time to change the people making the decisions, Luka.
I will even go up one more. The Josh Palmer injury almost feels as if it's a nice, how do I put this? It's a nice way to crutch what feels like is the actual outline message coming out of this game offensively. And what I mean by that is, I know first play of the game for the offense, Josh Palmer, hit on a deep post there. He does catch another ball that is inevitably what he gets hurt on, with just an awkward tackle. But where I'm coming from with this is, Josh Palmer I don't think would have even moved the chain as the crunch time was getting going. Like the game started to get away from them. And what we were seeing is just no one had the ability to win. You bring up the broadcast and them highlighting people were being out and whatnot and things like that. You know what I found frustrating is you have these guys sitting up in the booth doing their research where they kept like Orlovsky. It was like it was a broken record. You got to lean on Shakir, Knox, and the backs. It's like if the checklist is already getting down to that on to beat things, and let's be honest, Knox is not a man coverage beater. The running backs, James Cook might be, but they don't want to see what he looks like as a receiver in any capacity.
They have no desire to.
Why put him out in any position to do anything effectively in the passing game? Who cares? Because his pass blocking is not good enough, guys. When Shakir is basically your only man beating option, and the guys in the booth recognize that, the defensive coordinator recognizes that, everyone on planet Earth understands it. You're running into the same situation where it's like, tell me again how good this offensive personnel is. Please tell me, where there is quite literally one guy who is capable of potentially doing something for you in man coverage. A very basic level concept that a lot of defenses will run and continue to run against this team. Any level of man is seen across the board. Boom. You only got one read. You only got one guy. You can only do those things. And I don't understand how it's that simple and football is that simple. And then you also, on top of it all, offensively, have a guy in Joe Brady who I'm not sitting here on the peak telling you to, or telling everyone that he needs to be fired. But I mean, football is that simple sometimes. So what happened to, hey, it's 4th and 1.5. We are just going to, as you're dominating the line of scrimmage, let's just figure out an inside zone concept run where James Cook in his vision will inevitably find the gap as best as he can, as quick as he can, to then pick up that first down. Or it is 4th and 2, I believe that was, and pressure's coming. That is the staple of the Falcons. If you did your job, pressure's coming. At least 5 are rushing. That is what the Falcons are going to do in a key moment. And you come out with whatever that play was, and the guy out of the backfield, mind you, yet again, is Ty Johnson, because that's the package, or, in whatever excuse you want to give. Like, there are just things where you do need to just understand football is a simple sport at times. And it really is just get your best players out there to do the best job possible. And I just, today was a game offensively. Yet again, this is a trend now. I mean, we are multiple games into this where it just feels like this offense is pulling teeth at trying to do things. And it's just painful as what we get out of a product from Josh Allen. And it's, Josh Allen didn't have his best game either. Like, I'm not sitting here saying Josh Allen still played like an MVP and just everyone else let him down. I mean, that same 4th down play, they highlighted on the broadcast. It feels that way. He just felt pressure to be more close than it was, clearly. And he felt the only way he'd get a pass off was flipping it, when in turn, everyone knows, looking at it back, he of all people can flip his hips easily while running that way and just get an actual conventional overhand pass off. It was an overall, yet another just snooze disaster class out of the offense. That major questions. What a time for a bye week, Josh. Like, as someone that loves self-scouting, and it's something I like to preach a lot, this is a hell of a time to go into a bye week where you would like to hope a lot of self-scouting is going to go, and a lot of realization as to where the failures are, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I would love to assume that corrections will be made, as well as aggressive decisions will be made, as you pointed out up above, that might kind of change the look and dynamic of this offense moving forward, because it needs to. If you want this to be yet another shot at the goal, you need to do something, and you need to do it fast.
Yeah, I think it's becoming painfully clear that this isn't a defense that's going to help win you a Super Bowl. This is maybe a defense that, at best, on its best day, can hold its end of the bargain, put up an average performance, but the offense needs to be great. And right now, as it's currently constructed, this offense is incapable of being great because they don't have enough weapons on the boundary. Dalton Kincaid is a very nice tight end. I have not seen anything from Keon Coleman that tells me he's going to be anything more than a fun role player in the NFL. And, I caught a lot of flack from tweeting out from our account yesterday. Hey, if the Colts are really ready to give up on AD Mitchell, I'd take him. It's like, oh, we passed on him for a reason. He's got maturity issues. He's got off-field issues. No, he really doesn't. He's a 22-year-old that has diabetes, and he struggled to take his medicine, which 43-year-old struggle to take my medicine. That's just, it's a human flaw. Sometimes you get busy, you forget to do that. Keon Coleman's been suspended twice by Sean McDermott, not suspended, but held off the field twice. What's the word I'm looking for here? Penalized from playing the first drive, whatever the word is, because of character issues. So I think there's a lot of people that kind of refuse to acknowledge some of the red flags with Keon Coleman. But here's where I'm at. We're going to have a lot of conversations tonight, a little quicker show on defensive issues, offensive issues. But I think when you're what we do, a content creator, you can get labeled as one of two ways. One, you're always negative. You spew the negativity. You thrive. Everything's great, and you spew negativity. Or rose-colored glasses. Everything's fantastic. Doesn't matter what's going on. The team is great. And both of those things are going to attract a certain kind of fan. Negativity, unfortunately, gets a lot of views. We have more than 400 people in here tonight, and it's after 11 o'clock on the East Coast. And then people that just want to hear how great their team is love hearing that too. But we have been accused recently of being one of those negative shows that only talks about negative. And I will tell you, I love this team. I would love nothing more than to see this team win the Super Bowl. My heart hurts when this team does not win and when it underperforms and when they have those heartbreaking Super Bowl or playoff losses. I sat through the drought. I sat through the pain of J.P. Lossman and Trent Edwards and Kelly Holcomb and Ryan Fitzpatrick and Chan Gailey and Dick Duran and Mike Mularkey and Doug Marrone walking out and Drew Bledsoe looking great for 8 games and falling off a cliff. I'm ready for this team to take advantage of this alien of a quarterback they have in Josh Allen. I'm not thrilled sitting here and after 6 games that we were right, Luka, about how mediocre these weapons are. I would love nothing more than to be sitting here being like, whoa, everybody was right. Joshua Palmer was such a great ad. Look at him. He's like the second coming of Nico Collins. He just needed an opportunity. Whoa, Keon Coleman really took a step in year 2. Forget everything we thought about him year 1. He's ready to be T. Higgins. Whoa, Khalil Shakir got paid this offseason, and now he's just unguardable. I would love to be sitting here saying all that, but it's not the truth. And there was no reason to believe it was the truth coming into this season unless you just wanted to believe everything was hunky-dory, which fans want to do. But if you live in reality, there was no reason to believe that. Maybe you could believe that Dalton Kincaid had an elite tight end in him ready to burst out, and maybe we're on the verge of seeing that he didn't play tonight. James Cook has been everything you could possibly hope he could be at running back, and maybe then some, and that's fantastic. And Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the sport. But the weapons around him are inexcusable. And when Joshua Palmer, who was the 3rd or 4th wide receiver on the Chargers last year, gets injured in a game against the Falcons, and your offense can't function after that, the arrow goes directly at Brandon Beane, who could not wait to get on WGR the day after the draft and go on a rant about, you guys think we need a wide receiver, and just go on a 5-minute rant, pounding his chest about how great his offense is, pounding his chest about how great Joshua Palmer is, and laughing at them for daring to mention that wide receiver was in need. That's where I'm at. So now we sit here with 2 weeks to think about this loss, the Patriots loss, the blown opportunity where this Bills team was favored by 7.5 points last week, 3.5 points this week. And now instead of being 6-0 and having a massive lead on the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Ravens, the teams with the elite quarterbacks, you're sitting here in 2nd place in the AFC East. And after next week, going to have the same similar record as the Kansas City Chiefs, at least in the win column. And they're coming here in 2 weeks. So it's an opportunity that feels like it's been blown. The season is not over, Luka, but it's not like you and I are sitting here like, well, we were right. This is great. We are furious that we were right. And we were furious because it seems like this should have been able to be seen by the people making decisions at the top of this organization. And for whatever reason, it wasn't.
The point on the Brandon Beane rant, It's comical, and it's going to be a highlight. That you see it already all over. Man, that's a hard one to say fast. X, Twitter, you see people referencing it. I've been spamming it in places where it's like injected in my veins. I need to see Brandon Beane on WGR tomorrow telling me the same old thing. But there's an interesting dynamic to it that's got layers. I refuse to believe that he even thinks that he has found tremendous value everywhere and he was going to hit on everything and everything was going to be fine with what he put together in the receiver room. I refuse to believe that, because it just felt so apparent to a lot of others that are sitting there watching this that it's like, no, they are a bottom half. They are a bottom tier receiver core through and through. There's no depth, or you can say that there's just no high end anything. It is all depth. You're trying to almost over produce everything out of value. You're looking for the stretch the penny approach at every receiver you possibly can. And it's like, I want to criticize him left and right for that. But at the same time, as you put it perfectly, I don't want to be all negative on this. It is the same individual there that has a staff put together that has somehow landed Dayon Walker, who is like, I don't ever want to see a first and second down snap moving forward without Dayon Walker on the field. You do not rotate that man off this. I don't care when Jones is back. I don't give a shit what the hell is going on. That man is clearly a force on the interior, and you somehow got him on a day 3 of the draft. Respect to you on finding value there. You somehow, in a draft that drafted TJ Sanders with a lot of hope that he could be an impact player earlier on, and he is on IR, found this day 3 guy that turns out to be a hell of a lot more impactful right out the gate. Congrats. That is great value. Good find. Good stuff. And I am very happy about that. But as you said, it sucks being proven right or just feel like what we did see was more accurate because of this receiving core and these offensive weapons and the lack of dynamic playmakers that are surrounding Josh Allen. And then the cherry on top, the ice cream on top of the cookie, Josh, is that James Cook, the next best offensive player next to Josh Allen, is someone that they paid and still rotate out in key moments and still don't believe should be in there when you just need plays to be made. That makes no fucking sense. I don't give a shit about any other metric you could throw at me. I don't care. Like, he is your second best, most dynamic offensive playmaker outside of Josh Allen. Like, plain and simple. No one else can argue that. I don't want to hear that Shakir can be that guy because he's slippery and he's great after the catch. That is valid. He is not James Cook when it comes to just open field speed and playmaking ability. Dalton Kincaid is a great pass catching tight end. It's obvious he's not James Cook in the open field. Dalton Kincaid cannot sniff, and he only sees the bottom of James Cook's cleats when it comes to just breakaway speed. Like, there is just no reason to not have him more involved now. You can tell me all the things you want and you're trying to save him. I don't care. I know that people believe that you need to get more out of this backfield as a whole and a collective. At the end of the day, you have to accept that the other individuals are just not good enough. You have to. And in crunch time and games you need to have your best people out there. And James Cook is clearly that. You just went up against a team, mind you, that with 2 players produced their entire offense, and Bijan was being utilized in such a way. Bijan is a whole nother level. We talked about it in our pregame episode, all of those things. I love Bijan through and through. His talent is unreal. Like, the fact that Cole Bishop, who has him wrapped around his waist, doesn't even veer him out of bounds with how powerful and balanced he is an incredible feat in its own right. But why can't you just also accept that, just like the Falcons do with Bijan, James Cook needs to be on the field as much as possible? Like, when they are even bringing out Algier, Bijan's lined up half the time as a wideout. He's in the slot. He's somewhere else. Like, Bijan is just that important to them. James Cook, with the way the weapons are, is just that important to us. And it just makes the fact that you already have an investment in him, and the fact that you already are recognizing that he is that player for you, the lack of understanding or just the lack of care that it's like, Ty Johnson we need him out there for this package, or Ray Davis is the guy we're going to because he is the man in this package. It's like, fuck that. Put 4 out there. He is going to do it and probably do it better. So I'm done with any other understanding to what you're trying to do with these offensive weapons, because as it stands, you're just not using even the ones you have in house to their fullest ability. And the going is getting tough here. And as you've said, you're letting an opportunity yet again slip away by just making stupid decisions here on out. And it has to change. You have to recognize that it's not firings that have to happen right now, but everyone needs a self-reflection moment and understanding of, we just need this team operating at its highest caliber. And that needs to start with just putting your best personnel out there as much as humanly possible. That's just how it goes. I'm not saying that, if there's a risk of injury or further injury, whatever it is, but I'm saying James Cook has no sign of being, truly that banged up when it comes to injury risk. So why the fuck isn't he out there when you need to pick up first downs and move the fucking chains? It's ridiculous to not do that.
I think I'm actually going to make you madder. On our preview show, we mentioned that there's a very condensed target distribution on this Falcons team. It really is. In the wide receiver group, it's Drake London, and then when he's healthy, it's Darnell Mooney, and then it's everybody else. And everybody else just picks up small, tiny scraps. And then Mooney was out, and then Ray McLeod was out for disciplinary reasons tonight. And we said last night on we gave the Bills defense way too much credit. If you know one receiver, similar to the Jets, it's Garrett Wilson. One receiver is the only one that's going to be able to beat you. You put all your horses on him, and you live with the KC Washingtons beating you. Luka, I just looked up the box score. Drake London went 10 for 158.
Yep.
Cool. And a touchdown. And by the way, the length of a ding-a-ling away from 2 touchdowns. He was very lucky. The Bills were on not getting 2. A Falcons wide receiver not named Drake London did not catch a pass tonight. Not a single pass. The other receivers were, go figure, Bijan Robinson, Algier, and Kyle Pitts.
Yep.
If 2 guys who do a casual podcast can tell you that, what do the coaches do all week? Why is Drake London continuously open on 3rd down when you know he's the only perimeter threat they have? If KC Washington beats you, he beats you. And we have a comment up here I want to get to that I already put in chat once, but it's time to get to again. And I'm trying to figure out where it was at. It was about Christian Benford. I can't find it, but it was how's Christian Benford as wide receiver or cornerback 1 doing? Not good. Not good. We gave the Bills fans, you and I, a lot of flowers for some of these extensions they made this offseason. Christian Benford, Terrell Bernard, Joey Granick said, how about Benford? Real good cornerback 1, right? So far, not so good. Having a really down year. They can't match him up on the elite receivers. Diggs got him last week. London was all over the place tonight. Didn't matter if it was Benford or White on him. And you look at some of these contracts this offseason. The James Cook one looks fantastic. For sure. Shakir you'll live with. He's a nice weapon. He is what he is. Anybody that expects Khalil Shakir to ever be a wide receiver 1 in a good offense, you're fooling yourselves. Khalil Shakir is a classic Tyler Boyd, Julian Edelman, underneath guy who takes advantage of open space because you have to worry about somebody on the outside, which the Bills do not have right now. And he's a good player, but he is not a Batman. And when you look at what happened with the rest of the contracts, Terrell Bernard has been abysmal this year. Christian Benford has been very bad this year. And Greg Rousseau had a very slow start. I think he has been better the last 2 weeks, but this has hardly been the first 6 games that Brandon Beane wanted with some of these contracts. Luka, I'm at a loss for words with that stat line about no wide receiver other than Drake London catching a pass tonight, because as predictable as that was, apparently the only people in the world that didn't realize that about the Falcons were the Buffalo Bills defensive coaches and players.
I mean, on our pregame show, I gave it jokingly but seriously, all at the same time, a betting advice that there was a 3-to-1 odds bet out there that felt like even money, and even better, it was the easiest 3-to-1 bet you could ever make. It was Bijan Robinson total yards 150 plus. And not only did he hit that in the first half. He hit it, I believe, pretty much on the number. I believe total yards was at 153 in the first half. And then the tweets are out there, the stats are out there that Bijan Robinson and Drake London combined for, I want to say it was 299 of the 300 and change yards that Atlanta had in the first half. It goes back to just the same thing. This game might be football really is that simple game to me. And it's just like, sometimes you can be that asshole sitting up above, calling the plays and doing whatever it is, making the responsible decisions, and think you have this figured out. But just understand that football really is just that simple sometimes. And if you're looking at a roster and go, okay, number 5 and number 7 are really effing good for the Falcons, where else could they go against us that will cause us problems? And you don't have that answer, you should probably just accept it for what it is and just go, hey, let me, Casey Washington needs to be the guy that's beating us. Casey Washington puts up 10 catches for 158 yards and a touchdown. I'll sit here and go, good fucking job. Congrats. I will accept that. Trey White's getting roasted like that. We're just back to the whole, like, God damn it, Trey, can you not do that? I mean, and I don't want to pile on Trey because the defense, in all credit, like you mentioned it earlier, I believe, until that field goal at the end, they allowed 0 points in the second half after what we saw in the first half. 0. That is remarkable. The fact that we saw that first half, which was historically awful, and everyone, including myself, was like, I mean, you are coaching for your job at this point, Babbage. Like, you are coaching for your job. And I don't even know if necessarily he coached for his job well in the second half, but all credit to him. Thanks to a little bit of luck or help with the blocked field goal, you allowed 0 points up until that, last kick that they had on offense. And it's like the fact that first half happened, though, because you just had no awareness of what they're going to do. I mean, it was as simple as they had maybe 5 plays. They might have looked a little bit differently, but they had 4 to 5 plays they were running. And you essentially had your inside zone run play, your outside zone run play, your motion run opposite direction play, which, by the way, first half, that was basically all that. Like, you saw a guy going this way, that run was going the other way every time. And yet those holes were massive, as if the defense had no awareness that was in their playbook. None. I don't know if it wasn't on tape until that moment. I'm not sitting here watching Falcons tape week in, week out. That's actually the job of the defensive coordinator and the defensive staff. And it feels like they sure as shit didn't know about it. So it's mind-boggling what that effort was. And the fact that the Falcons did have the most basic ass game plan with what their personnel is, and let their big boys be big and play big and do everything that they did against the Bills. And the Bills were out there almost trying to outcoach themselves through to the finish line, and saw that first half transpire. And then even in that second half, when it's like, okay, the defense is steadying things out at times. You just need Josh Allen and this offense to do something. And when you need to pick up yards and downs and move the chains, you're calling and deciding the things that you are. To do that, fucking mind-blowing. It's almost to a level that deserves the term inexcusable. It's almost there. And I want to say it, but if I use the term inexcusable, that is me saying Joe Brady's, I'm calling for his job. We're not at that point. But there needs to be serious self-reflection and self-coaching and understanding of what the hell just took place. And things have to change, both at a personnel level, but then also just at a coaching level. It is as simple as that, Josh.
A lot of people remember last week against the Patriots, there was a third down play where they did a end around to Dawson Knox and he fumbled the ball and it ended up costing the Bills a drive. And Sean McDermott was asked throughout the week about some of the plays on offense. He said, I think we got a little too cute at times. Today, there was a 4th and 2 that Luka already referenced where it's 2 yards and you don't even bother having James Cook in the backfield, which he is the Bills' second most explosive player outside of Josh Allen. He is the one guy besides Josh Allen who scares defenses. You take him out of the equation, and now you have Josh Allen rolling to his left to where he now has to either decide whether he has time to flip his shoulders or do the underhanded chest flip and throw it to Ty Johnson, and it goes incomplete. Then the next time, the Bills, I forget the sequence of events, but they blocked a field goal. But now we're talking about a 3rd and 1 after a blocked field goal where it feels like like the Bills have just escaped this fire that started in Atlanta. And now they finally had this game. The Falcons are unraveling, and now the Bills are going to be the Bills. They get to 3rd and 1.5, and you have Josh Allen. And then they show right before they show the play, they show Sean McDermott on the sidelines, and I'm like, oh, there's James Cook. There's Ray Davis. There's Ty Johnson. We don't have any other running backs. Is Reggie Gilliam lined up in the backfield? Nope. Sure enough, when they go to the play art now, or the football viewing screen, Josh Allen's lined up under center on 4th and 1.5. Or 4th and 1.5.
Yeah, it was 1.5.
And so now you're thinking that's a long ways for a quarterback sneak. And if you're the Falcons, that's what you're thinking too. And then Elijah Moore comes in motion. And at that point, I know he drops the ball, folks. Lucky for Joe Brady, he drops the ball because that play was going to be blown up.
Yep.
That play was going nowhere. It didn't fool anybody. The Bills had no running backs out there. And I don't even know if that was my least favorite sequence of the game, because on the Falcons' last drive where they finally hit the go-ahead field goal, they're standing there. It's like 2nd and 5 on the 40-yard line. And at this point, a field goal ends the game. You have to treat that like basically 38-yard line as the goal line. I look down, first down, it's Joey Bosa, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, and Deion Walker on the field. Beautiful 5-yard gain by the Falcons. Let's line it up again and see what happens on 2nd down. I look out there, it's Landon Jackson, AJ Epinesa, Jordan Phillips, and Deion Walker. The game is on the line. The game is absolutely on the line. What are we doing? Did all 3 of those guys get gassed at the same time? I don't think so. I'm betting it was just a wave. And I cannot, for the life of me, figure out why in a crunch time like that, those 3 players came off the field. That's Joey Bosa, your big money defensive end, and Greg Rousseau, and your big money defensive tackle. And that's when you needed it. And they're right back on the field the next play. But the play before that is the one that broke their back. I don't understand the strategy. I don't understand leaving James Cook on the sideline in critical situations to at least make the defense respect it. This team, I think, continuously overthinks itself. And then on defense, they underthink themselves. Luka, if I were to ask you to power rank Buffalo Bills people you were most upset with today, and by people, I mean coaches / front office members, and I'd give you a list of no, not doing that, Sabres fan.
He's top of the list right now, people.
Brandon Beane, Bobby Babich, Sean McDermott, Joe Brady. Who are you most irate with right now?
Oh my God. I mean, let me just put it this way. It is an incredibly difficult decision because it feels like they all equally have their hands in the cookie jar right now of responsibility. And this is an offensive failure loss, but I also still lean a very touch on Babich. And the only reason I'm going to go there, this is an offensive loss. Joe Brady has a lot of explaining to do. Bobby Babich allowed that first half to happen. And it was as simple as 2 guys kicked his ass. What in the fuck were you doing for a week plus evaluating this team? What were you seeing that had you go into because you have to remember, I talk about, by the way, the Bills are the most predictable team early on. Scripted plays, the Bills suck at defending them. They always have, they always will. McDermott appears to be the most predictable individual in the history of the NFL. Just the reality of it. So that first touchdown drive happens, I excuse it, because even the Jimmy Garoppolo, Devontae Adams led, Josh McDaniels Raiders years ago could effectively move this ball on a much better defense, mind you. So it's one of those things that you accept it. But then you watch what's happening after that first drive and you're like, oh shit, we have no idea what the hell's going on in front of us when it comes to the Falcons offense. Oh shit. It's like they've never seen number 7 in a Falcons uniform before on tape or anything. oh shit, they don't realize that Drake London is the only receiver that they're seeing across from them that they need to be concerned of. What was the message going into that? What was the idea of what we needed to stop going into this that then led to almost 300 yards of offense out of two guys and a hole that felt at the time going into halftime was insurmountable? Because how the hell are you going to stop this? Because what you're seeing is not working. Credit to him. I'm imagining it's credit to him that adjustments were made, things like that, messages were delivered, and they held things up. That's what makes it so close. But I just lean that because there's also like, it feels week in, week out that this defense is so poor that I just question the ability of that coach to just understand how to do the things that a defensive coordinator needs to do defensively, plan wise. Like, what's the game plan? What's the idea? What's the message? What are these players being told to do that is just week in, week out, putting up these absolute dog water performances and just doing things like that? I just, it is truly just mind blowing what the hell Babbage is doing with this defense. And Babbage feels like the scapegoat that could be coming tomorrow, similar to the Dorsey firing, where it's like McDermott's going to retain play calling. Babbage has been relieved of his duties because that was just unacceptable defensively, performance wise, for a multitude of reasons. And as I said, that loss really does kind of feel like an offensive loss, all said and done through the 60 minutes of it all. But it just feels like maybe it could have been, you could have gotten through it if you didn't have a historically terrible first half like you did, that felt like you had no idea what you were supposed to be doing in the first place.
I'm going to go, as we wrap up here, to Tactical Keith has 2 comments in a row. I'm going to put them in reverse order here. We got a unicorn at quarterback. This opportunity could potentially be the only guy we're going to hit on for the next 20 years. That's real, folks. I don't know if you want to accept that or not, but if you're new to being a Bills fan, I'm not judging you. You don't have to be as old as anybody to be a true Bills fan, but if you're a Bills fan of a certain age and you lived through the drought, you realize that when the Bills don't have one of the most marketable superstars at quarterback, they are basically a dead zone in the NFL. They don't get primetime games. Nobody wants to go there. You have to overpay guys like Langston Walker, who are average offensive linemen, to come here in free agency just to get people to come play on your team. And that is true. When Josh Allen, who's going to be 30 before we all know it, eventually moves on in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, however much longer we have him, who knows when the Bills are going to have this kind of opportunity again. And his other question was, does anything change after this game? Something has to change, Luka. I don't know what it is. I'm open to anything. I'm open to cornerback. I'm open to adding a linebacker if you can. Although the lack of resources this team has, knowing they're getting Milano back, what I think has been an encouraging play from Shaq Thompson, dropped interception aside, I think they can still piecemeal this linebacker group together. To me, it comes down to cornerback, safety, or wide receiver on this team. And does somebody get fired? I wouldn't rule it out. I really wouldn't. We're 8 years into this Josh Allen ride. We might be at halftime after this season. And so far, there's 2 AFC championship game losses to show for it, which a lot of teams in the league would sign up for. But when you have a future Hall of Famer at quarterback, that's not enough. I think this team is getting very close to the crossroads of needing to blow it up. I made a comment after the Patriots game, Luke, and I know you probably remember it. The only thing I know is good on this team is the quarterback. I think the head coach is good, but I can't say that with certainty. I think he's good. I don't know that the GM is good. In fact, I have my doubts about his allocation of resources, particularly at the defensive line and receiver, and his ability to identify talent there. I don't think this is something where you add a piece or two and all of a sudden this turns into a Super Bowl contender. I think there's potentially a massive shakeup needed here, understanding that the quarterback's here to stay. Like that's here to stay. But I'm open for the first time in the Josh Allen era, Luka, to a house cleaning. And that's, who knows how this season's going to go. The Bills still have a very favorable schedule. The AFC is still looking very winnable. And, they could make a trade or two at the trade deadline, rip off 8-9 wins in the back half of the season, still get the 1 seed, still go on a nice playoff run, still accomplish everything they need to accomplish because the AFC is having a down year. They still have Josh Allen, and maybe they make a trade for a wide receiver who can get open. Who knows? Max Harrison comes in and he hits the ground running and he's great. None of this is outlandish, but I'm as open as ever to a complete house cleaning when it comes to Bean and McDermott, and that's not at all where I wanted to be on October 13th. I'm not saying tomorrow. I think this season needs to play out. You don't gain anything by firing Brandon Bean tomorrow or Sean McDermott. But I think I'm as open to it as ever. What say you on potential house cleaner, or what maybe even needs to change, whether it's short term this season, try to salvage it, get it back on the rails, so to speak, or long term?
It's such a complex thing to me. And I think that also stems fairly or unfairly, however you want to choose, to even something that extends beyond the sport as a whole. And I mean, you said you didn't want to bring up the Sabres, Josh, but I don't trust even the person that will be inevitably making that decision if they were to clear house to then put the right individuals in vetting the next up people. Like, I have no track record and understanding of, or just, I have no trust in the track record that shows that this ownership and this ownership group understands both what it's good at and also its limits. Like, maybe not being the president of hockey operations and laughing off legitimate people for that position when you are a absolute dumpster fire. So all of a sudden now you have this weird dynamic where it's a very delicate thing. You have, as we talk about, a unicorn at quarterback and a future Hall of Famer there that it feels like spinning the tires on around him. And I am with you in the kind of keeping my ears open and my intrigue to whatever else is out there. It's like, yes, but also, is Terry going to be understanding that he needs to trust people who know how to hire these individuals and who know how to look for these talented individuals to put them in place to hopefully get the change you look for? I don't know, because ego just feels like one of those things, unfortunately, for this owner and a lot of owners. He is far from alone when it comes to billionaire owners and having an ego to them and wanting to run things a certain way. I mean, you get these owners going into locker rooms saying that the winning will go on forever, referencing one in particular, because he thinks it needs to be centered around themselves. That I just struggle to know where that change comes. So it's a coin flip. Like, we need to see how this season plays out, as sad as it sounds at this moment in time. But like, it is a true knife's edge coin flip, like how that can go, because you could absolutely tank it. And I believe that is a real possibility, unfortunately, with this ownership group, on what could transpire if you let this go. And it feels as if you need to it just needs to get over the line once. But as you're bringing it up, I don't know if I can trust anymore that Bean and McDermott are the two that can finally get it over the line. So it's just like, in that sense, yes, you're insane to keep going about this. You need to find something else. It just would be awful to tank it in the wrong direction all of a sudden because you decide to move on and go with whatever else is there and just think it's going to magically work itself out because change is good. It's like, sometimes change isn't. So it's a very complex thing to think about. That I'm not someone that likes to live in the questions of fear when it comes to decisions and things. I like to kind of be reactionary and trust, my gut and blind ways and things like that. I do that with a lot of different things. This is one that it's like, man, it's a delicate thing that could happen if you were to move on. And the risk is just so high with what the potential could be out of that I think the firings, realistically, I think the firings will be just under the people who call the shots within one Bills drive, if anything at all, which I think those could even be coming, as I mentioned before, mid-season. But I don't know truly if Terry would be willing to pull the trigger on moving on, and or if he's even the right person to be doing it. And if I just can't trust him, I cannot get over it, Josh. I can't get over what I see somewhere else. And it's like, this guy is clueless on what he needs to do. And you have hockey Hall of Famers calling him, being like, hey, I would love to be your president of hockey operations. And he goes, we already have one. It's me, and hangs up the fucking phone. When you hear shit like that, it's like, this guy's insane. This guy is so full of himself that he believes what he's doing right, even though what everyone else in the world sees is a disaster. So I just don't know where to go with that. Honestly, it is a terrifying prospect to think that Terry will be the one that has to decide where we go forward if you fire McDermott.
I like what Justin said in chat, and I don't think you have to even take this as just football advice. I think this is great life advice.
Yeah.
Change is always an unknown. And my mom once gave me great advice when I was younger about a relationship that went south way before I was, way when I was younger. And she's like, there's people that get out of prison and they're depressed because it's a change of their lifestyle. Don't ever let the fear of the unknown prevent you from making a change that you think is necessary. And that's not just football, that's all walks of life. But in this case, in the context of football, I do agree that just because the grass may not be greener, the color of the grass that you're currently standing on is not green enough for your liking. And the only way to change that is to change something, and to change something notable. Luka, we have now 13 days until the Bills play another football game.
Thank God.
Yeah, I need a break from this team. I predict there will be a change before they take the field, if not two. I'll step up to the plate and make a bold prediction of like an even a player they trade for. This Thursday night is Steelers and Bengals, right?
Yeah.
If the Bengals lose that game, I predict that the Bills flip a pick to a guy who played well against the Bills in a playoff game and bring in cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt, who immediately comes in, challenges for playing time against Tre'Davious White. Challenges. And gives the Bills some much needed insurance against Dorian Strong not coming back, and against Max Harrison not being ready since he hasn't done anything football related since early August. And I think, he's a guy that's going into year 4. He started a lot of games in this league, came into this league. You liked him as a rookie, hit the ground running, was an immediate impact player for the Bengals. And since year 1, it's been up and down, but he definitely has more athleticism than anything the Bills have in their secondary right now. And he would allow them to play a variety of schemes, to run man coverage, which they actually did tonight with Benford and Trey White, which was like, whoa, is this happening? What we're doing? I see some other names float out there, but that one is one I would call my shot on. And I would not rule out Brandon Beane trying to get a wide receiver. I think he'll look under every stone. It wouldn't stun me if the Bills trade away Curtis Samuel in a moves where the Bills actually lose an asset along with Curtis Samuel to essentially buy cap space. Because trading away Curtis Samuel frees up, I believe, $6 or $7 million against the cap, which is massive this time of year. And so you take Curtis Samuel, you trade him to a team like the Titans or some team like that would be willing to buy, say, a 5th round pick from you, and they take on that cap space, and you free up cap space, which then allows you to go make a more significant move. But I think the Bills are going to add a cornerback. They absolutely have to at this point in time. We've seen enough to know they don't trust Jamarcus Ingram after he stood on the sidelines and watched Kyer Elam fall all over himself in the AFC Championship game, and after he stood on the sidelines and watched Tre'Davious White do the same thing this season. We know they don't trust him. Dorian Strong may not come back. He's seeing a specialist about his shoulder, and we don't know what's going on with Max Harrison. They're going to trade for a cornerback, in my opinion, and I do think there is a better than 50% chance they trade for a receiver, and I do not predict that they make a coaching change. That's where I'm at. Trade for Cam Taylor-Britt. I mean, pie in the sky, Tariq Woolen, but I'll take Cam Taylor-Britt. And then outside of that, I'll say a receiver like maybe Rashid Shaheed. I would love A.D. Mitchell if he was available. I know Chris Olave is somebody that a lot of Bills fans like. He is not my flavor, but I mean, I would, at this point, I'd take him. I'd absolutely take him, because compared to watching Tyrell Shavers out there running meaningful routes for the Bills, but I think that's the path I expect the Bills to go. How about you, Luka?
changes are absolutely coming. I'm 100% confident that moves will be made. The joke I said that the bye week is, it's nice that the bye week's here. The joke in that is it is actually, ironically enough, a good time for it to then make those kinds of moves, corrections that you need to. It's a rare, in my opinion, rare, because I normally like to buy in a later time. It's a rare time where you have an earlier bye week and it actually might benefit you because you look, the ship is far from sinking right now. It's we're 4-2. I saw it in the chat earlier. I agree with that situation. It's like it's 4-2, far from sinking. There's red flags. There's clear, apparent red flags. I'm with you that corner is absolutely priority number one. I love the idea of Cam Taylor-Britt. I don't ultimately know what truly will be out there, but I will say a name you've brought up to me individually in the past, one that we've even seen. Who was it subbing in for Rich Eisen this past Friday? Fuck. Anyways, the one insider he brought up, when brought the question, Pelissero, thank you. When, hey, who's on the market? And the classic, well, just look who's really bad right now. And he brought up basically the entire receiving corps for the Saints, including Rashid Shaheed. Rashid Shaheed is not the sexiest name out there, but boy, if you want to stretch things for yourself on the offense, both as an opportunity to potentially make that big play, but also open up those areas of space for these guys who can't fucking do that on this offense, that's how you do it with one person. If you want to truly do that, that's a great idea. The Chris Olave thing, I'm with you and share a brain in he's not my cup of tea, but also at the same time, I mean, cost-friendly option, get it in here, could be effective. Just hope to God his brain doesn't explode, because there's that serious concern. And we can, he will be much better, it feels like, than anything else you're putting out there. I believe multiple moves will be in place because at the end of the day, I think Bean is starting to feel pressure with what's going on. I think we talked about the WGR rant and just laughing at, Jeremy White and stuff when they raised the question on why they are not addressing receiver more aggressively. I felt like that was a break in the armor and just a moment where maybe he even senses a little bit of pressure because it wasn't exactly like Jeremy White and the crew that day was leaning on him. They just brought up a question and it just flipped a switch when it comes to Bean. And generally that tells you that something's lingering deeper in there in the individual for it to be that short of a fuse to break. Someone that is known for short fuses, I could tell you it's generally cooking from somewhere. And what we're seeing take place and what the questions are going to be raised by the media, rightfully so, and everything like that that's going to be leaned on with this team following those last two performances, Bean's going to feel a lot of pressure going into this bye week. And if you're an individual with the abilities that Bean has, you're going to try to do something. F it, go all in on AJ Brown. I mean, I even made jokes about it. It's like, get a dog. Absolutely. If it fucks your cap, take the billions of dollars in cap penalties or whatever, hell, lose your draft picks for doing it or whatever it is. Now, mind you, you also have to, it's Howie Roseman you would have to deal with, and you probably have to give up a ransom because that dude has
doesn't lose trades. Yeah.
Yeah. That dude has voodoo magic when it comes to trades. But if you can pull something off like that, phenomenal. I think to me, the names are simply, I love the Rashid Shaheed idea. I think a receiver comes in after a corner, though. And when it comes to corner, I mean, Reek Woolen already being advertised as potentially trade bait. And then Cam Taylor-Britt just makes a lot of sense when it comes to the Bengals season, kind of getting away from them. There's also guys like, you hear targets also in the receiver world, like Jacoby Myers. Is Jacoby Myers really going to produce anything differently than what you have in-house? Maybe, but I don't know. There's questions that I believe you need to bring in dynamic playmakers, however you can. Like, you need that. If you can't go get an alpha dog like an AJ Brown, like we're talking about here, just bring in something different that will actually be useful and how to use. Like Curtis Samuel was supposed to be kind of like a utility weapon, and you just refused to use him, and you paid him like you were going to, and you just don't. Maybe because he's just not actually that good. But just find something else, because getting a Palmer and a Keon Coleman and all these others, Tyrell Shavers, they're all the same shit. It's all the same thing. And that's why you then have broadcasters going, you got one guy out there who can beat man coverage and slip through space. No one else, though. Like, what? And then your best idea every once in a while is throw a back shoulder fade on a legitimate number one corner and hope to God he comes down with it. Like, find something else. Rashid Shaheed provides you something else. Chris Olave probably provides you something else as long as he keeps his head not broken. I just like there are things out there, and I believe moves will be made in the short future. I believe we could be hearing things, Josh, by Friday. Multiple moves. On the coaching topic real quick, because I know we want to kind of wrap up here. I also think there's going to be a heated conversation with Babbage tomorrow. I think there's something going on there. And like, McDermott has shown a track record of needing to find a scapegoat and getting upset with certain coaching decisions and game planning and failing just game management from their directive, whether it's special teams, offensive, defensive. This feels like we're getting to a tipping point where there needs to be blood from a coaching staff perspective almost. And Babbage feels as if he's not doing it. And it's something that McDermott could recognize of, I can fix this. I can do this. And that's a powerful thing in its own right for someone else's job hanging in the balance that I would not be surprised at all if I'll say tomorrow, because it makes a lot of sense that you would do like kind of like a post-game meeting recap, and that would be a typical time for a firing to happen. So I'm not saying it just because it is tomorrow, but that's normally what happens, and that could happen. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we learn tomorrow Babbage has been let go, and then all of a sudden by Friday, there's a couple players and a couple moves that have been made to bring them in and change the dynamic of both the offensive and defensive side of the balls. Names don't exactly have them, but I fully expect player personnel moves to happen by Friday. Fully 1,000%. And I mean moves plural. It will not just be one.
Well, two moves we know are going to happen are Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi are going to be added to this roster. A move that we all hope will happen sooner rather than later is Max Harrison, the Bills' first-round pick at cornerback, will have his window open. So that much should help, you would think, although this idea that Michael Hoyt, a career role player, is going to come in and change this defense is a little rough. We have over 1,000 people in chat tonight, and it is nearly midnight on the East Coast. So thank you to all of you out there. If you're watching on YouTube, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It certainly helps us out. And this, Luka, since we are in the post-game window here, do we want to quickly do a game ball and game check?
Oh, hell yeah. Why not?
All right, let's do it.
This is going to fill our void now officially as our Bills Chat Live for this week. So don't expect a show when it comes to Wednesday.
Justin, you were doing so good with your comment before. And then you said, Rex Ryan. No, I think he's right where he needs to be on TV. All right. Game ball. For those of you, I mean, we have a big audience here. For those of you that don't know, game ball and game check is essentially our MVP, LVP. Game ball is very, very easy. Luka and I will pick a player or coach that deserves the game ball for their performance tonight. It's Bills only. And then game check is the player that shouldn't have even shown up. They should hand in their game check. We try not to be duplicative. So if it's a game where it's like James Cook runs for 200 and Luka picks James Cook, I'll pick somebody else. Luka, who gets your game ball for tonight's 24-14? Feels like the drought. 14 loss to the Atlanta Falcons.
I'm glad you said it has to be a Bill just for everyone else, because boy, it's very tempting to say Bijan Robinson. I mean, yeah. God, it sucks being a Bills fan, just gushing over that, but also at the same time, he's just so goddamn good. To me, it's very clear. Like, there was one guy who stood out. I brought up his name before. Yeah, he is no longer a pup in my eyes. He's ready to go. And in another Discord server having live conversation during the game, as long as his back is working, this guy might be Calais Campbell light. And Dayon Walker, you get my game ball. Like, you are a force in the middle. You make impact plays when you need to. We talked about in our pregame show, Josh, how I mentioned I respected the inside three because they were healthy and ready to go for the Falcons. Dayon Walker multiple times was able to get free release off of those guys and into the backfield instantly. And again, This is technically a rookie. Loved everything I saw out of him. He needs to be on the field every first and second down moving forward. McDermott, do not rotate this guy out or else you're a complete asshole. Dalen Walker, you are my game ball.
I'm with you. I think that's the obvious pick. That would be my pick, obviously. Too. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with James Cook. He's all the Bills really had offensively. I thought about Joshua Palmer because he was playing a very strong game before he got injured. I was very curious to see where that went. It felt like we were kind of having a Joshua Palmer moment, and that we've been the show that's kind of laughed at Joshua Palmer. And it is a shame, and you hate to see an injury like that. Hopefully, it's not a long-term thing, but that could also impact whether or not the Bills are gonna be out there looking for a receiver. All right. With the good and all the good there was tonight, there's gotta be some bad. Luka, this one should be quite a bit easier. Who gets the game check for you from for the Buffalo Bills in this loss?
I'm flipping my own script. It's Joe Brady. I sat here earlier talking about how I leaned the most on Babbage. And I think I still believe my tank because I was even looking at for the season to date picture because it just is another example that first half of how things have been wrong with but we're talking game checks. We're talking about the game. And this was an offensive loss. This was a game where finally things were settling down for you. You were making plays defensively and doing things at least that somehow controlled a crazy first half down to a manageable second half. And your play calling and decision making as an offensive coordinator with Josh Allen under center. We talked about the lack of talent around, but you still have Josh Allen. It was mind-boggling more than not. And the highlights or the lowlights, however you want to look at them, because they were lowlights. The fourth down play call decision, the 3rd and 1.5 decision, like those are moments of someone who just isn't seeing it right. Like, and again, I brought it up earlier. Football, a lot of times more than not, is just that simple. And you are way overcomplicating it. And I think there's a little bit of irony when it comes to Joe Brady being the guy calling plays because Joe Brady coming in for the Dorsey firing, the thing that I think we all enjoyed about him early was it was simple in the run game. He was effectively, I mean, we remember that Cowboys game as the highlight of kind of the Joe Brady, the difference he will bring. And it was a simple run game. Like it wasn't over the top. It wasn't cute. It wasn't all of these things. He wasn't overthinking these situational play calls needs to be this because maybe we put too much of this on tape, whatever the reasoning is. It was like, fuck it. We have James Cook. We're coming out in 12 personnel and we're going to do a stretch zone run concept. That's what we're going to do because it's working right now. Hey, we're killing them on the interior A and B gaps. We're going to fucking hammer that. Like it was that simple. And now all of a sudden Joe Brady's out here. Like Joe Brady's doing the self-scouting for the opposition. Like he's doing the thing that you mentioned, you know, you come out, no running back presence in the backfield. You put Elijah Moore in motion. Until Elijah Moore went in motion, Josh, the Atlanta defense at least had to sit there and go, I don't know where this ball is actually going yet. As soon as Elijah Moore moves, there is nowhere else that ball is going. And every fucking asshole knows it. Like you tipped your hand. Isn't the idea to not do things like that? Just mind-blowing stuff. So yeah, Joe Brady, buddy, hand in your check. You do not deserve a single penny for what the fuck you just put out there.
And when you think about comparing the two coordinators and, you know, Babbage had a miserable first half. I mean, you just can't even make up how bad over 300 yards of offense in the first half given up. But he was playing left-handed. At one point, he was down to Jordan Poyer at safety. He had 2 backup linebackers in there. When Bernard went out, Tre'Davious White continues to be just an abysmal answer at cornerback. Although at some point, that's more of a Bean issue than an injury issue because right now they're really down one guy that was competing with Tre'Davious White, not even necessarily had beaten out Tre'Davious White. There are some Falcons fans trickling in here. Hey, Falcons, enjoy it. I get it. The Bills are a top tier team in the eye of many. This was a massive win for your team. Your studs stepped up tonight in a big way. You deserve to be happy. Game check award. I know this feels like piling on, but Keon Coleman, man,
Yeah.
On a night when Tyrell Shavers goes down, you give the Bills 3 catches for 11 yards. On a night where the Bills are trailing all game long, you give the Bills 3 catches for 11 yards. Where's the physicality? Where's the jump balls? Where's the improvement? Where's this dynamic playmaker? I liked Keon Coleman as an idea coming out of college. I didn't like him over some of the guys that were still available when he was taken. Luka has been very outspoken that he would have pulled the trigger on Worthy in that spot. He certainly wouldn't have traded out with the Chiefs. I was an AD Mitchell guy, and for better or for worse, Ladd McConkey has been as good, if not better, than all of them, even though he's had a down year this year to some degree. It's time, Keon Coleman. This was a night when your team needed you. This is a night when Dalton Kincaid wasn't playing and Tyrell Shavers left with an injury, and the Falcons knew that Khalil Shakir could really only carve them up at paper cuts with 6-7 yard catches. And it was time for you to be a guy on this team. And unfortunately, instead of being part of the solution, you were part of the problem. And I think many Bills fans will remember this game very similar to the Houston game from last year, where the announcers are saying over and over again, the Bills just can't get open. And their guy, Keon Coleman, was out there along with Khalil Shakir, who I think did play a reasonably good game. But there's only so much you're going to be able to do with Khalil Shakir completions. You need the boundary receivers to win. And they certainly didn't do that. I missed Mac Hollins tonight, Luka. That's where we were at. I missed freaking Mac Hollins. Yeah, and then one final thing on the receiver, I would think it would be a boundary receiver. They're pretty good shape with Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel. So I would think that it would be a boundary receiver. That would lead me more to like an Olave, a Shaheed. Jacoby Myers has been more of a slot receiver. Tyler Lockett's an interesting name out there that was on Adam Schefter's list, but he's much more of a slot receiver. So at this point, really, though, it's just get a body in here. I'd still love to see if the Colts are going to give up on AD Mitchell. Take a flyer, man. I love that kid. All right, Luka, this was, therapeutic. I was going to say fun. This was therapeutic. Yeah. I don't believe this episode's going to go up on Spotify. I could be wrong, but it's going to be on YouTube. We'll put out clips on Twitter throughout the week. Maybe we'll throw it up on Spotify. Who knows? But as far as the bye week goes, Luka and I are not going to be doing a live show on Wednesday. I think this pretty much covered that. And we are still debating if we're going to do a show this weekend. Some of that might be predicated on what the Bills do between now and the weekend. If nothing happens, there may be nothing to talk about, and maybe we all take a bye. So from there, we'll be looking at the following Wednesday live show, getting ready for those Carolina Panthers who beat the Dallas Cowboys and don't look now are on a 2-game winning streak at home and welcome in the Bills off of a bye. And boy, oh boy, Luka, if the Bills don't make a trade over these next 2 weeks and they come off the bye and lose to the Carolina Panthers, the wheels are off.
Yeah.
And guess who's coming to town after that?
Oh, yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs. But then again, the Bills can beat the Panthers, beat the Chiefs, and all is fine. I mean, that's all within the range of outcomes, and it wouldn't surprise anybody if it did it. But hey, thank you to everybody who hung out tonight. We know it's a late night. We know that we're all kind of licking our wounds as Bills fans, and it's very therapeutic for you. Hopefully, it's therapeutic for us. We enjoy doing it. For Luka, I am Josh McCarty. We will talk to you next time on Bills Chat.